Good morning. My name is Lainey Eddlemon, and I am thrilled to be joining the team as the HR Director. I am eager to get to work on this new and exciting endeavor. I truly think this startup has the potential to go very far. But of course, we must ensure that we take care of our people along the way, and that is where my passion stems from. Today, I present to you a few ideas for how we can track the metrics of our team so that we can improve the performance of our individuals as well as the organization as a whole. To start, you might be wondering, what are HR analytics and why are they important? According to Cascio, Boudreaux, and Fink, HR analytics is fact-based decision-making about people and organizations. Additionally, there are 4 levels to the HR analytic framework, including reporting, metrics, insight, and input. Today I'll present 3 analytics that will cover these 4 frameworks. The 3 proposed analytics that I will cover today are measuring employee engagement, calculating separation costs, and determining the return on investment of HR programs. Let's begin with discussing employee engagement. What is it? How do we measure it? Why is it important? And how will this metric affect the overall financial environment of our organization? It is a well-known HR fact that our employees are our greatest asset. So as such, we should work to ensure that employee attitudes towards the organization remain high and that our employees are actively engaged in their work to keep these attitudes high. We're told that workplace effectiveness equals satisfaction plus commitment plus engagement. How do we quantify engagement? To start, we can compare both top and bottom performers. We can analyze the value of these outcomes of both sets of performers. Next, we can consider outcome improvements across quarters. And lastly, we can look at the results in measurable engagement differences between both the top and bottom performing groups. Once we can quantify engagement, we can get a better sense of where the organization stands. And from there, we can work on improving engagement. This starts with improving attitudes. We can do this through a multitude of ways. Some include wellness programs, and when our employees are well, they miss work less often. But also job satisfaction and overall employee experience are important factors. Higher employee engagement leads to a more positive service climate, including higher performance and increased customer loyalty. So employee engagement is important across the board. Overall increased engagement also decreases absenteeism and turnover, saving the organization from having to incur these costs. Speaking of saving the organization from incurring the high costs of absenteeism and turnover, next we're going to talk about how we can quantify separation costs. The cost of separation and the cost of turnover is incredibly high, which is why it's important that we keep our employees engaged to save us from these expensive separation costs. But we can calculate these costs to see exactly how much they affect the organization. There are lots of components to consider when calculating separation costs. First, separation costs in general include exit interviews, admin functions, separation pay, and unemployment tax. Next, we have to calculate replacement costs, the cost that it requires to replace an employee that has separated from the company. Replacement costs include job availability, pre-employment admin functions, entrance interviews, testing, staff meetings, travel and other moving expenses, acquisition and dissemination of information, as well as pre-employment medical examinations. This includes everything that is required to onboard and to replace an employee. Next, we also have to consider training costs. This includes costs of equipment and new employee orientation, as well as formal training programs and any mentoring that might be required at the organization. The last thing to consider when calculating the separation cost or cost of turnover is the performance difference between the leavers and their replacements. Is the new hire more efficient or less efficient than the old employee? All of these go into consideration of our separation cost. It's also important to think about how often turnover has become in 2022. According to financesonline.com, 20% is the employee turnover rate in the U.S. in 2020, and 3 out of 4 employees are leaving their jobs voluntarily. So this goes back to my previous slide about the importance of keeping our employees engaged and wanting to stay at our organization. The last HR analytic that I'll present today is calculating return on investment, or ROI. Specifically, ROI for particular HR programs. I've talked a lot today about employee engagement and how this can save us from high separation costs. One way to keep employees actively engaged is by implementing different HR programs. Specifically, let's think about wellness programs. To determine if these programs are worth it financially, we can perform a return on investment or cost-benefit analysis to determine the overall value of implementing the program. ROI is a simple equation that equals the total expected benefit divided by the total program investment. We can consider benefits gained from implementing a particular program. Again, let's think about wellness programs here. Some examples of benefits could include reduced absenteeism, reduced healthcare payments, reduced turnover if employees remain high in their attitudes towards the organization and remain actively engaged. We'll divide the total benefits in a dollar amount by the cost of program implementation. Overall, ROI tells us whether or not it is worth it to implement certain HR programs. Thank you so much for bringing me on board the team as the new HR director. And thank you for allowing me time this morning to present these HR analytics to you. I am excited to get to work together to increase employee engagement across the organization to avoid any unfavorable costs associated with a disengaged team. I'm eager to track our HR analytics to ensure success of the organization and our people.